Here's a story from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a beautiful, beautiful country, but a country of extremes. It could be 20, 30 degrees in the summer and minus 20 and minus 30 in the winter. So though a lovely country, it can be a harsh place to live and work. And so it was that there were two friends, a farmer and a shepherd, who worked in the foothills of the mountains. It was a hard life, the shepherd tending his flocks and the farmer growing a few bits of arable and trying to make the best of the land. Life was difficult, but they were good friends. They'd been up there a few years and they got to know each other over time, and they liked to have long chats in the dark winter evenings, and they enjoyed each other's company. Well, one winter, one very bad winter, when the temperatures went down to about minus 40, the shepherd lost all of his sheep to the cold. Every one of them died. And he didn't know what to do. And he went to his friend and said, I have to leave the mountains. My sheep have all died. I cannot live here. I've got no way of making money. And his friend the farmer said, you can't leave. We've known each other for years. We're good friends. I'd miss you. Well, I know what we can do, said the farmer. I will give you half my land and you can farm it. I will show you what to do. It is not easy, but it can be farmed. And between us, we can tend the land together. Now come outside. And he went outside with his friend and he pointed over to the left and said, that side of the farm is yours. This side will be mine. And the shepherd said, are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Come, let's start now. And they went out and the farmer started showing the shepherd how to prepare the land for wheat and how to look after the soil as best he could. Though of course he didn't have any sheep manure to do anymore. They had to go further afield for that. And so it was that life settled into a pattern. But the farmer did show his friend the shepherd how to look after the land, as I say, and they became good farming brothers. The land was poor, and every spring they would clear the stones by hand and hoe it and get it ready. And one spring, the shepherd was doing just that, trying to clear the land of the stones, when his spade hit something hard in the ground. He thought, that's odd, and he banged it down again, and sure enough, there was something in the ground, and he dug around, and to his amazement he saw a pot of gold. He could see the gold just sitting on top. The lid had disappeared, and he thought, that's astonishing. He dug it out and lifted it up and called over to his friend, the farmer. Look what I've just found on the land. A pot of gold. And the farmer came across and said, that's astonishing. How much money do you think's there? They both looked down and said, there's hundreds of coins. Your fortune is made, said the farmer. And the shepherd said, my fortune? This isn't my fortune. It's on your land. No, said the farmer. I gave you that land. That gold is yours. Oh, don't be silly. We all know the truth. It's your land. It's your gold, said the shepherd. No. And it went back and forth like this for several minutes. And then, because they couldn't decide, they sat down and thought, what can we do? And just then, the farmer remembered that a local judge was visiting the area, deciding on court cases, and they could go and ask him for an opinion about whose the gold really belonged to, the shepherd or the farmer. So, taken the gold pot, and it was really heavy, so they had to carry it between the two of them. They went their way down to town and sought out the judge. The judge was sitting. He'd taken his chambers with him. He'd brought a few students, and there was a kind of young boy amongst their group who the judge tolerated because he was bright and he liked his ideas. But usually the boy sat at the back just listening to what the judge had to say, absorbing all his wisdom. The two men, the farmer and the shepherd, stepped forward and said, "Sir, may we ask an opinion of something?" "Of course," said the judge. "I'm between cases. Tell me what your problem is." And both men explained what had happened. About the gold and the land being given, and etc., etc. And they couldn't decide who the gold belonged to. And the judge smiled, rubbed his beard, and he turned to the students who were sitting over to one side, listening to what was being said, and he turned to his first student and said, "You, sir, tell me what you would do." And the student looked a bit perplexed and thought, all gold belongs to the Khan, doesn't it? I think you should give it to the Khan. "No, don't be silly," said the judge. "And you, sir, you, man, come on, what's your opinion?" Pointing to the second student. I think that you should take half the gold for your fee for this judgment, and the rest should go back to the Khan," said the second student. "Oh, don't be stupid, boy." Turning to the third, "What would you do?" "I think it should go back in the ground, sir. It belongs to no one but God." Oh, I have heard enough." The judge turned to the boy. "Tell me, what would your answer be to this quandary?" And the boy looked up and said, Me, sir, me. You want me to offer an opinion? But No, come," said the judge. "I am really interested in a fresh young mind and their approach to these things. Tell me what you would do." And the boy sat there thinking. And then he said, I've been wondering about something for a long time, all my life, in fact. In our country, only the poor do not have gardens. The rich have gardens, beautiful, beautiful gardens of pure white marble, pools, grass, palms, flowers. But only the rich people can go in those gardens. The poor have none. The poor have none. I think we should use the money to build a garden for the poor." And the judge again stroked his beard, shook his head and said, "You know what, that's a really good idea, and I am going to make it happen. Boy, come here." The judge took the gold from the farm and the shepherd said, and he handed it to the boy. "I would like you to go to the nearest market and buy plants and seed and trees and whatever you need to make a garden. And to make it better, I will give you the land for the garden at the back of the town, which is my land. You can have that to build a garden for the poor. Now go." The boy was astonished, clutching the pot, which felt even heavier to him. He'd never held something so heavy. He staggered off out of the judge's rooms and down into town, thinking, where's the market? Truth be known, he'd never been there on his own. He went down the lanes, through the streets, and eventually came to the market. The smells and the people. He'd never seen so many people. People buying and selling in all sorts of things. I need plants, he thought. I need seeds for my garden. And he looked at the gold. This will buy a lot. This will buy a lot. And just as he was thinking that, a caravan of camels came by with something strange on their backs. Each camel had birds tied to it, tied upside down by their feet. Birds of all types and colours, blues, red, gold, silvers, yellows, blacks. The boy had never seen anything like it before. There were hundreds, indeed there were thousands of birds on the backs of the camels. And he looked at the birds. They were covered in dust, and some looked as though they were on the edge of death. The boy went up to the man leading the caravan and said, "What are you doing with the birds?" I'm going to sell them to the Khan if it's any business of yours. He can use the feathers or the meat, and as he wishes, I will make a pretty penny, said the man. You can't do that. They're beautiful birds, thought the boy. And he looked down at his gold and said, I would like to buy your birds. I would like to buy all your birds. And the man said, don't be silly, boy, you have no... And he then caught sight of the pot of gold the boy was holding and said, I'm sure that's about enough, and grabbed the whole pot and said, you may have them, and walked off. The boy spent the next few hours untying and cutting away each and every bird. Some of the birds needed some water to drink. Others just flew away into the sky. And eventually, all the thousands of birds, the reds, the silvers, the whites, the blacks, all flew and disappeared. And the boy sat down. It was a hot day, and it was a dusty day. At first he felt happy with himself. That was a good thing to do. And then he remembered what he'd been sent to the market to make a garden, to buy plants and seeds, and he had none of those at all. And he bowed his head and set off walking back to where he'd come from, tears rolling down his eyes, and he sat down halfway back to home and held his head and said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I've let everyone down. And just then, a little bird came and sat on his shoulder. It was a little bluebird, the type of which he'd never seen before. And the bird said to him, we need to thank you for what you have done for us. We know what you are doing. We know why you had been sent to the market. We, the birds, will help you build that garden. And as he turned again to his shoulder, the bird flew off and disappeared. There was a sound in the air, and the boy looked up. There were birds flying in towards the town, in towards the land the judge had given them. They were carrying plants, they were carrying seeds, and some started digging the ground, and some started building piles of soil with their feet, and slowly a huge garden emerged, and slowly the pools filled up, and slowly in front of his eyes the plants began to grow, until to his amazement there was a beautiful garden in front of him being created by the birds. And then his ears caught something, the sound of carts rumbling, and he turned and he saw the rich people coming towards the garden. And as they rumbled in their carts and their horses, suddenly the white walls appeared out of the ground and enclosed the garden, and the huge gates at the front, which he had not seen before, suddenly closed. The rich tried to get in over the walls, but they couldn't. They slid down and could not even peep over the top. And then there was another sound, the sound of bare feet. And he turned again, and he saw the poor of the area making their way towards the gates, their feet shuffling through the sand and dirt, with no shoes, and few clothes, some of them. And as they approached the doors, the gates opened, and the poor went into the garden and were amazed at what they saw. The flowers, the trees, the pure water, and each one of them took a sip of the water and knew they'd come to a place of safety, a place of peace. And that night, some of the poor stayed in the garden, but some went home to where they chose. chose to live. It is said that garden still exists if you know where it is. It is a sanctuary. It is a place of peace and quiet, which all who need it can find. That is my story.